fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, Tom, whatever you want to call me. And you guys are my buds. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody had a good week. I personally had a lot of fun watching coverage of the Calling Dallas-Fort Worth, which was sealed, and we're gonna take a little dive into sealed and limited in general. I guess Dallas-Fort Worth was both sealed and draft, so we're gonna take a little dive into like what we kind of learned from watching this major limited event. Kind of also give my take on limited in general. It is one of my favorite ways to play card games. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Unsalted Cracker on Twitter, who won the giveaway from the past week. He'll be getting that in the mail soon. I'll be sending it out probably tomorrow. And I want to thank everybody for participating on that on Twitter. And thanks for tuning in, and we're going to keep rolling with this podcast. I hope everybody's enjoying. You guys can always reach out whenever. If there's anything you want me to talk about on the podcast, or even if you just have a question in general. I know our boy Drunks on Twitter did ask for my opinion on, and actually a couple creators, their opinion on drawing and going to time in Flesh and Blood, and it was an interesting question to kind of debate a little bit. And I think we all kind of fell into the same kind of paradigm on how it should be changed going forward for competitive Flesh and Blood. But I think without further ado, I think we're going to get into our Crack-A-Pack. This is going to be the first new pack of the next couple of giveaways. We have another pack of Tales of Aria First Edition, which we're going to be talking about in terms of limited for the rest of the episode. So I think it would be good for me to go through the pack, as I have been, and kind of go through my thought process, maybe from more of a draft perspective, because I've been drafting a lot more, and draft. I believe this, as I said before, the skirmish events are going to be draft, and yeah, I think it'll be pretty helpful. So let's crack this pack here. Got to get a good grip on it. Ooh, there we go. Sweet sounds. We got a Frostbite token out of the pack here with Oldham, which we are going to speak about him quite a bit here. Some of these cards are upside down. Yeah, some of the printings have been a little weird in this set, which is it is what it is. I mean, we had I did a draft on Monday where like all the foils were miscut, which is kind of cool. You could still play them because you could read most of the card, but they were all that whole foil sheet was miscut. So without further ado, let's talk about these cards. So up first we got Ball Lightning Yellow. Ball Lightning is a card that I think performs very well in both Lexi and Briar. It sets up that nice go wide strategy. The yellow one's, pretty good. Comes in for 2, and then whenever a lightning or elemental action card would deal damage this turn, it deals that much damage plus 1. So pretty strong card. Sets up. It's a good place to start, I think, because you can firmly be in either Lexi or Briar if you pick this out of the pack. Next, we have the Yellow Breakground. I do really like this card in Oldham. I prefer a blue one or a red one, but coming in for 6 damage and limited is pretty strong. And he also, or it has the effect that you may put in a card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck if you do draw a card. That's nice. Get a little extra value. Cost 3, which is, in Oldham, that's why I really like it in Oldham, because you tend to want to run into the blues a little bit more. But pretty solid attack. I mean, I wouldn't fault anybody for playing it in Briar as well. It's another solid spot to start out at. And next we got Lightning Surge. Lightning Surge this is the blue one. This is a lightning attack action. If it was played from Arsenal, gains go again. It comes for 2 and has 2 defense. I think the blue one, I think I like Lightning Surge for sure. Nice card to fuse with. I think that obviously out of the arsenal is great. Sets up for those go wide turns. However, the blue one's a little low powered. But I think I like, if you were to go into this Lightning Surge first pick, I think you probably would want to go into Lexi a little bit more. I like the idea of playing Lightning Surge, or putting Lightning Surge into your arsenal, flipping it, playing out another attack, got go again from the Lexi, and then playing this, and then kind of really go wide in one turn. It sets up for nice big turns. But I think we're going to be on a ball lightning so far, but we'll see how that goes. Next we got Entwined Lightning. This is a 0 cost. This is the yellow one. It has 3 attack, 2 defense. If it was fused, gains go again. Lightning Fusion. Another good go wide card for both Briar and Lexi. This is a pretty heavy lightning hand so far. But that being said, I still think ball lightning is where I want to be so far in the pack. Next we have Winter's Grasp. This is the blue one. This is a 2 costed, 4 attack, 3 defense. This is a solid card, putting, the blues. This is a card that I see and I'm like, I think maybe I want to start going into Oldham, right? You want more blue earths, but I think a blue Winter's Grasp is just fine. It, especially against the go wide strategies. If you pitch this into the defense reaction of Oldham's effect, you can kind of shut off their game plan a little bit. Still not what we're going with. I think still ball lightning, in my opinion, is where we want to start. Next were the rares, which will be in a giveaway. We got Biting Gale. This is the blue Elemental Guardian defense reaction. Costs 2. It has Ice Fusion. If it was fused, the attacking hero discards a card unless they pay 2. And has 2 defense. It's a fine blue to kind of turn on your Titan's Fist or Winter's Will if you're lucky enough. This is a pretty good defense reaction. Definitely against, that's another one really good against the go wide strategies. I don't think we'd want to pick this first pick, but I think you're more than happy to have this in Oldham. So it's something worth considering. Next we have Evergreen. I really like this. This is the red Evergreen. I really like this card. I really like starting with this card. High powered, costs 3. It's an earth attack action. It hits for 7, and if you play it from your arsenal, you can put it on the bottom of your deck when the combat chain closes. Which I will say, people run out of cards in limited quite a bit. So this is a great card to keep in the arsenal to kind of stack your deck, and I think it plays really well. I honestly, personally, would go for this, mostly because I'm really liking Oldham, and this costs 3. It's an Earth card. I think I think it's one of the good threats to play in the deck, especially if you're arsenaling with it. You want to make sure that you're really stacking your deck and fatiguing your opponent. So I like Evergreen first pick, and ooh lordy, we have a foil Majestic. Speaking of Oldham, it's Endless Winter, Oldham Specialization. So 4 costed, 8 attack, 3 defense, um, uh, Elemental Guardian attack action. It has Ice Fusion. If it was fused, whenever a defending hero adds the defending card to the chain link, create a Frostbite token under their control. And if it hits a hero until the end of their next turn, whenever they activate an ability, create a Frostbite token under their control. I feel like the second ability isn't as strong in Limited as it is in CC or Blitz. However, I will say that if you fuse it, this is a huge hit. I mean, first of all, you're coming in for 8. That's a huge attack in Limited, especially 20 life. They're gonna want to block some of it. Now, you come in and you force them to block, they're gonna get a bunch of frostbites. Kind of turns off their next turn, and all of a sudden it's your turn again. This is a card. If you're an Oldham, it's gonna completely flip the script, right? You've been, being really defensive. All of a sudden, you mount this huge attack, and your opponent's now on the back foot. And this is kind of when you want to finish the game. Really like Endless Winter. Honestly, I think it's good enough to kind of jump on it. And then you're firmly in Oldham, and you can build your deck around that. Yeah, which is awesome. I'm gonna make sure I sleeve that really quick for the giveaway. Nice little foil Endless Winter. That's exactly what I want to see. Throw this over there. So yeah, now I think we went from being on Ball Lightning to being on Evergreen to being on Endless Winter. Though I wouldn't fault anybody for staying open, if they feel like they have a better shot of playing Briar or Lexi. Our equipment is Cracker Jacks, which is great in your Guardian deck with Thumps. And I think it's just a solid arms equipment in general. Next we have the yellow Rites of Replenishment. This is a Earth Fusion Runeblade attack. It hits for 5. A solid card. The thing I've found with Briar is making sure you really balance out your fusions, because it feels like a lot of the good Briar cards need the fusion to really pop off. Now, the Rites, not so much, but you definitely have to make sure you have to get the balance right. Snow Under. This is the yellow one. Costs 3. If it was fused, if it hits, your opponent gets a Frostbite token. Hits for 6. Hits pretty hard. Yellow Overflex. Great. I mean, the Overflex card, any of the colors are pretty great in Lexi. So I do like Overflex. Now this is an interesting one. Red Inspire Lightning. I mean, 3 arcane damage is no joke. However, if you have Inspired Lightnings in your deck, first of all, you got to make sure you can fuse it, right? Because it requires Lightning Fusion. And you got to realize that it doesn't have Go Again. And that my opponent at a draft on Monday didn't even realize that. And I had to correct him. I was like, oh yeah, it doesn't have Go Again. And like, oh no, my turn's like totally messed up, which kind of sucked, but like, you gotta learn, right? And but if you got a card like Vila Flash, which isn't in this pack, but which gives your next non-attack action like instant speed or whatever, you can really pop off with the Inspire Lightning, and 3 damage is no joke. I mean, like basically unblockable. Next we got the Red Mulch, which is a really solid card. Earth Fusion. If it was fused, it's kind of like Command and Conquer, except puts the card from the arsenal on the bottom of the deck. Hits for 8. You don't want to start with Mulch, but when you're firmly in in Oldham. I think you're gonna really like, especially the red mulch. And then we have Blizzard Bolt, the red Blizzard Bolt, which is the ice fusion. Whenever attack deals damage to a hero this turn, create a frostbite token under their control. Solid ice arrow if you're going in the tall strategy. It was a pretty weak pack for Alexi overall. I mean, I guess Overflex, not too bad, but yeah, I think the pick there is Endless Winter. Card's awesome, really great art. And that foil is going to be look pretty cool in the listener's hands. So so that's the Kraken pack for today. And I guess we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. Let me take a sip. All right. So, the Calling Dallas-Fort Worth was this past weekend. And it was another successful flesh and blood event. I think it was the total number is like just over 502 players, which is great for limited. It's like, not, they're usually not as big as the constructed tournaments, but it was pretty exciting. I mean, these callings are very successful, and we have Cincinnati this weekend. Friend of the show, Trash Andy, is going to be on the mic, casting it. So, definitely make sure you check it out. And this should be exciting. And I believe they just sent out an email to the participants today that instead of the 7 rounds of sealed and then cut to top 64, there'll be 8 rounds of sealed, cut to top 64, which means, as far as I know, that it's going to be a bigger tournament than Dallas-Fort Worth. Now, that is understandable. Cincinnati is a little more central to a lot of the bigger markets in the Northeast. Chicago, and even just Ohio in general is huge. Pretty close to, big states that play like Virginia. So, that means that I believe this weekend is going to be pretty big as well, which is exciting. But yeah, let's get to at least my take on the tournament itself in terms of the limited format. And, the first thing, and I imagine we're going to see a lot of the same stuff this weekend, which is why I probably won't go over I'll probably touch on this weekend's tournament next week's episode, but I'm not going to go in depth like I am for Dallas, just because it was the first of its kind, at least that we've had large coverage of, or large scale coverage. So Tales of Aria sealed. I think we can all say that Briar is queen. Yeah. Briar is queen of sealed in Tales of Aria. And there's multiple reasons for this, and I think we're going to get into why. But most of the top tables towards the end of day one were a lot of Briar decks. Some great players there playing Briar in the sealed portion of the tournament. Not to say that there weren't other decks that were performing well of the other heroes, but it was predominantly Briar. It's a Briar dominated format, the sealed. Now, why is that? First and foremost is arcane damage. Arcane damage is huge, especially in a format that does not have any arcane barrier, right? There are no, outside of some legendaries, there are no arcane barrier equipment. So it's hard. That's basically, I think the only thing is that can prevent any kind of damage is any kind of arcane damage is the runaways at the common slot, which would require you to already have taken damage that turn. So so that's the only thing, right? And that's only a one damage one time thing. So Big reason why Briar is so good in sealed is there is no arcane barrier. Arcane damage is very hard to deal with in this format. And another point to that is I think in deck building, Briar is a less restrictive deck, like less restrictive good deck, right? When you open your pool, you can the main thing you got to worry about is having a nice balance of non-attack actions and actions to really turn on your Rosetta Thorn, right? The Rosetta Thorn is the weapon that deals 2 arcane and 2 damage. So when you sit down, like all the lightning, all the earth, and all the Runeblade cards in general are easy to kind of put together into a deck, and it's a pretty straightforward deck. You're just jamming, right? You're just getting in there with attacks, and that's basically a pretty, not to say simple strategy, but a strategy that people are familiar with from playing in other formats. So when they sit down and look at their pool, they're like, okay, this makes sense to me. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now, one of the things why that is that way, and Lexi and Oldham are not. So Lexi, when you sit down, you got to have good enough arrows, right? You got to make sure, like, even look at that pack we just pulled. We had, outside of the elemental stuff, we had Overflex and a Blizzard Bolt. Now, so if that's like 1/6, right? That pack is 1/6 of a sealed pool. You sit down, it's like, all right, I have 2 cards out of this pack plus some elemental stuff that the elemental stuff could go into Briar as well. So, like, you need the good arrows. So where I feel like Briar does not need the good Runeblade stuff, it could just look at really good earth stuff and lightning stuff. So you really want in Lexi, you really want to make the most out of your shiver, basically. The qualifier in Briar is usually just solid, powerful, cards. Turn on your Rosetta Thorn. That's all you're really trying to do. When you're looking at Lexi, you need some good reds, yellows to get your, and then you need to really make the most out of your shiver, your bow. That's really where the power of Lexi comes in limited. And then when you look at Oldham, if you don't open a ton of blues, Oldham's not really going to be a deck that you want to play. A lot of the plays with Oldham kind of boil down to, like, all right, I'm going to get really defensive, and then I'm going to swing in with my Titan's Fist. That's basically what it is, and he plays a controlling style, and that's what he is. And when you have a sealed pool, and if you don't have the critical mass of blues, it's not going to come together for you. And I think that is why we don't see as many Oldham and Lexi at the top tables of a sealed portion of the tournament. Now we'll get to draft in a bit, and things are definitely switched there, and that's the way it is for anything with like a sealed and draft format. And I'm thinking of Magic here. Usually the sealed stuff is like straight power, right? It's always you're gonna go for the straight powerful stuff. It's nothing new. And then in draft you get really into the nitty gritty of synergy, which I think, to be honest, really shines in Tales of Aria. Let me take one sip. I could edit that out, but I'm just on a roll, Just want to keep going. Yeah, so at the end of day 1, right before cut to top 64, a lot of Briars at the top tables, really carried a lot of guys into day 2, or into top 64, then day 2, and even some guys all the way to top 8. So which is great. These are great players for a reason. They recognize power and they play it out. I've been known to force things. Personally, I've sat down at a table of a SEAL tournament, and I've tried to just I like Oldham. I might have just forced Oldham, even if it wasn't right. But sometimes when you're in the competitive setting, you got to take a step back from that, and you're just like, all right, I want to play Briar. So, and I want to win with Briar, which, it's a downfall to the format, but also really is a nice contrast when we get to draft. So we're going to talk about draft real quick. Well, not real quick. We're going to take our time on draft. So the tournament was 7 rounds of sealed, cut to top 64. And it's still in the day one, that top 64 does a 3-round draft. And then the top 32 made the second day 2. And then they did another draft, and the top 8 of that did a draft for the top 8. And that's what we're going to see in Cincinnati as well, except it's going to be 8 rounds of sealed instead. Now, I imagine we're going to see somewhat, at least we're definitely going to see a similar play out of sealed for Cincinnati. I think we're going to get a lot of Briars at the top tables, and we're going to get to the draft. So here's some notes on draft that I have. First of all, pretty exciting. This is the first truly high level draft on a large scale coverage format. That, at least to my knowledge, that we've seen. I mean, Channel Fireball's really, doing a great job with this coverage. So that's very exciting. I love limited gameplay, and I think it really, especially draft, really makes Flesh and Blood's gameplay shine, really. And it was a real pleasure to watch. Now, we still see a lot of Briar in these drafts. I think it's heavily drafted. However, these Oldham and Lexi decks were no joke. These no jokes were decks, whatever. Doesn't matter. But no, they were no joke. They really performed well. But some notable day tours, I should say. Matt Rogers, who I believe won the Calling Auckland. He's a New Zealand Kiwi. Brendan Patrick from the Arsenal Pass podcast was a great Flesh and Blood podcast. If you really like to get into the nitty gritty, he does it with Hayden Dale, I believe his name is, and they really dive deep on strategy, and that's a great podcast, Flesh and Blood wise, that I would recommend to anyone. Saint Hung, who's a high level player, Stephen Woolley, Dante Delfico, and it's a guy actually I have been following on Twitter for a bit while he was doing Road to Nat stuff. Austin Yost. So the day tours was stacked, and it was definitely interesting to see. Really these high-level players really shine in limited as well as they have in the past in constructed. So, basically, so the top 32 is day 2, and they had a draft, and one guy really stood out, Namvo, who, spoiler alert, ended up winning the tournament. All 3 drafts. So day 1, the top 64 draft, he drafted Oldham. Day 2, top 32 draft, he drafted Oldham. Top 8, drafted Oldham. Won the tournament with Oldham, which was awesome. It was amazing to watch, and I'm going to talk about in a bit. He truly put on a masterclass on what it means to truly draft Oldham, which I think as a newer game, not a lot of people really understood the nitty gritty. They saw, like I said before about Briar. Briar's pretty straightforward. It's powerful stuff. Synergy's there, but it's not like make or break. You can hit with a big attack and get your embodiment of Earth tokens to set up some nice defense the next turn, and you still end up playing out pretty well. But Oldham, takes a mind or a certain mindset to draft, and he really showed what that meant. So one of the strategy, the main strategy. Geez, I can't even talk. That's how excited I am about Namvo playing Oldham. But the strategy that he seemed to go in on was like blues, obviously, but like really focusing on Earth blues, because a lot of his turns were just like, all right, attack with Titan's Fist. All right, I'll block, and then I will prevent two with his defense reaction. Oldham's defense reaction got so much play this weekend, which was insane, and it was really, he played a perfect kind of fatigue defensive controlling strategy. I watched him beat the Mirror against a guy with a Winter's Whale. You're like, oh, the Winter's Whale Oldham guy is gonna slam him, but that didn't work out for him because that guy didn't have the Earths. He couldn't play the as defensive game style or play style that Namvo was doing. So that was really interesting, really fun to watch. But let's get to the top 8. Who made top 8 and what did they draft? Here's in order of seed. So we had Alec Myers, Brendan Patrick, or I should say what they drafted as well. Alec Myers drafted Briar. Brendan Patrick drafted Lexi. Drayton Gans, I hope I'm pronouncing these guys' names right. Briar. Namvo, Oldham. I had an asterisk master next to it. Will Laystrom, I believe that was how it was pronounced, was on Briar. Eric Darrenheim was on Briar. Nick Zimmerman was on Lexi, and Ian Riley was also on Briar. So the interesting thing about this is that's 5 Briars, 2 Lexis, and 1 Oldham. So these guys, I think a lot of these Briar guys were forcing Briar. It's clearly powerful and does really well in sealed, and they really went all in, and the table had 5 Briars, and that led to 1 really powerful Oldham deck and 2 pretty strong Lexi decks, which and I'm sure the Briars in general were fine, but one thing to note was that the Briars did not beat a non-Briar deck. The first round had two different rounds of Briar, mirror matches. Obviously, 1 Briar, 1 on each of that. There was a Lexi mirror match, which Nick Zimmerman had beat Brendan Patrick to get to the top 4. And Namvo had played against a Briar as well, beat the Briar, and then beat another Briar to make it to the finals. And then the Lexi beat the other Briar that had made it to the top 4. So in the top 8, because I don't know if this is because there were 5 Briars. In reality, Briar didn't really perform all that well, just because it couldn't seem to beat the non-Briar decks in the table. So, which is really cool to get in a Briar dominated sealed tournament. And even decently so at the draft tables, it was nice to see an Oldham Lexi finals in which Namvo went on to win the title. One more second for a sip. So what's really interesting for this, and this is what I took from it, was, well, first of all, I learned so much watching this, and that is one great thing about coverage, right? I even remember when I was younger, learning how to play Magic. I would watch coverage, and just seeing the way high level players play, it definitely um, gives you. It doesn't give you like a direct path on how to be better, but it gives you the right guidance, and that's really what I saw this weekend, um, which is really cool. I went to a draft the Monday after, as I said earlier, and I sat down, and I've played two drafts prior to this, and I went 1 and 2 both times. And I was like, I'm just learning. I could pinpoint where I was off on both, but it didn't wasn't really clicking the way I had hoped it would. And I was willing to learn, and watching coverage actually really helped that. And I sat down at that draft table on Monday, and I I opened a tome of harvests first. The blue majestic, which is has go again. As additional cost, you put a card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck, and you draw 3 cards. Really powerful stuff. It's blue. It's Earth. And I was like, well, I'm gonna take this, and if next few cards lead me down the Oldham path, I'm gonna go Namvo style, right? I'm gonna go Namvo style on this draft, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, that's what I did, and it felt so satisfying, right? It felt so satisfying to really have it all click. I built this really sweet. I had so many blues. I had like an ungodly amount of blues. I think I even had to cut a few, but some solid earth cards. Sprinkle a few ice cards as well. And then I had a decent amount of thumps, and I had my Cracker Jacks, and I had a full suite of equipment. I was ready to go. I was like, all right, I think I'm doing it. Round one, I played a Briar who had this is his first time drafting the set, and he was the one who had made the mistake on Inspire Lightning, and it was a shame, but I did beat him. But in round two, I played one of the better players at the LGS, and he's actually qualified for nationals, and he'll be down there. Hopefully, I'll see him down there when I'm in Orlando. And we were both on Oldham. We were the two Oldham drafters at the table, and our game came down to fatigue. Right, we both had like no cards left in, like, basically like 3 cards left in our decks each, about. And it was one of those things where I mistakenly blocked with early in the game, blocked with an attack that just would have been better to save for the end of the game. And I ended up the remaining amount of cards I had were just nothing. They couldn't do anything. I could keep attacking with my hammer, but it just wasn't going to be enough. And he being a better player, kind of foresaw us going down to those last few turns, and he made sure to keep a nice big juicy attack, in which that I could not block enough of. So I lost round two, and then round three I played the only Lexi player, which was like a little scary because he was the only Lexi player at the table, so he knew he had great arrows, right? He had like a great tuned deck, and he's a good player, and we played, and I basically took a page of the Calling Dallas Fort Worth Champions book, and I really turtled up and tried to control the game with defense and Oldham's defense reaction. And I got to the point where I was so focused, right? I was so focused on making sure I didn't die and like chipping him some damage that I look over at the other side of the table, and I'm like, oh, he's got 4 cards in hand, so I can attack and maybe get some cards out of his hand. And then I look at his deck, and it's not there. He was on it. I had been so focused, I didn't even realize that I had controlled him out of a deck. And it was he was a good sport about it. He was like, oh, can I just play out my hand and just to see if there was any optimal moves there at the end so I can get better. I'm like, absolutely. And I had a pretty stacked defensive hand anyway. I had no worries about dying. So I let him play it out, and then he's like, yeah, now you can just hammer me a couple times. I was like, yeah, and he's like, conceded. So it was a lot of fun, and I really felt so good about performing, in my opinion, well at this draft. Obviously, a 3-0 would have been great, but that second game was so tough, and I think it's one of my favorite things about the Oldham Mirror is it gets so grindy. And you get down to the end of both of you get down to the end of your deck, and basically you're relying on yourself being the person who pitched stacked your deck the right way, which I didn't, and it was such a shame too. I had the thump in my arsenal, but I had no way to pump it. Maybe at some point I should have just played it out. But I was trying to get something going with it, but it is what it is. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and that's the thing. I think, and even watching my opponent who's on Oldham, I realized that he drafted a similar way, and my first draft, it felt like that it was like Briar or like really fast Lexi, right? And that's what like a lot of the conversation was around draft. It was like, oh, Briar's still OP, blah blah blah, yada yada yada, and it was really cool to see. I think that draft is self-correcting. It used to be in Magic, and I think it's going to be self-correcting in Flesh and Blood as well. And that's exciting to me. I think that's the sign of a healthy format. It's a lot of fun. I think Tales of Aria is super balanced. Because I felt like Briar, Oldham, or Lexi has the ability to go 3-0 at any point as long as it's built correctly. And that's the beauty of Tales of Aria, these like really intense synergy that is just tough to get in the sealed portion of the tournament. So this is that's basically my take on the calling at Dallas Fort Worth, and that's what I expect to see in Cincinnati. Though you never know, anything can happen. It's a bigger tournament, allegedly or not allegedly, assumedly, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch. But one thing that happened on the Sunday in Dallas Fort Worth was, for those of the players that didn't make day 2, there was a ProQuest. A ProQuest, it's like an old school Magic PTQ, where you're looking to qualify for the Pro Tour, the Flesh and Blood Pro Tour, whenever it happens. And there was 164 players. It was a CC tournament. So this is the first big CC tournament since the chain bannings, as far as I know, at least in the States. One sec. And which is exciting because a lot of people don't know what the meta is going to be for nationals, and it was actually pretty relieving to see how diverse the top 8 was. The only way it could have, it was almost. I guess the most diverse top 8 you can have is 8 different heroes. But that's hard to do. There's always going to be some strong, like multiple strong decks coming in. But we had one Prism, which won the Calling Las Vegas. Not too surprising. There was one Prism. One Katsu, which was a strong deck as well in the last Road to Nat season. 2 Bravo. Interesting to see Bravo on there instead of Oldham, but I guess Oldham And this is a point I saw online that Bravo is just straight up power. It doesn't need time to get going like Oldham. Bravo's good on the first cycle of its like deck play, rather than like Oldham being better in later game. So that was interesting to see Bravo. And then we had one Lexi. This is new Tales of Aria uh, hero, which was interesting. It seemed like straight lightning Lexi, like really going wide, really aggro, which is awesome because this is the first time since I've been playing that Ranger has been seemingly competitive, which is awesome. That's good news. I know the Ranger fans out there are loving it. I know some would prefer it was Azalea, but what can you do? I mean, those remorseless prices are not dropping anytime soon. I'll tell you that. We had one Dash. Dash was, I believe, more on the control side of Dash, and then we had two Sir Boltons, the other light hero. So a nice little warrior action. I believe it was sabers mostly for Bolton. But the winner of the tournament was yet again Prism. So Prism is is going to be racking up those living legend points if it keeps winning tournaments. But that being said, I don't think that necessarily means Prism's the best deck. It just I think that Prism is a deck that, in the hands of a great pilot, can be extremely potent in a competitive setting. So that is pretty interesting. My take on it is I think the format's still wide open. I don't think there's any clear powerhouses. Prism's obviously good, but you know what? You're gonna need a library of Solana, I think. So that kind of restricts the amount of people who can play Prism, and Lexi performing well is probably going to be an indicator for nationals. I think a lot of people might try to hop on that train because people do really love our Ranger. I'm happy to see Sir Bolton playing well. I think he's a really cool hero with a lot of cool decisions and cool gameplay. Katsu, I could do without Katsu. The death of a million cuts strategy is very frustrating to play against. So I'm not like in love with playing against Katsu. So I imagine he's going to continue to be really strong, and I understand why. I imagine we're going to see more Katsu for years to come, and Bravo, not surprised. I think with Terra Sunder, that's such a good card, right? That card really is a game changer for any Guardian strategy, and I bet we see a ton of Bravo. But probably, if this is any indicator, we're going to see more Bravo than Oldham, and I know the concern with Oldham is going to time, and hopefully that means that. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Hopefully that means that I don't even know what that. With that not even hopefully. I think that means Bravo is going to just be the guy to play in these tournaments. However, I might play Oldham at the Calling Orlando. I'm stuck between Oldham and Levia. We will see. And then Dash, I think Dash is with people who know Dash in and out. Dash could always make a run to some top finishes, so not surprised to see that as well. But it's exciting, man. It's like another 164 players on the day two. Like that's great. It's a good sample size. I'm not sure they didn't release any kind of at least that I saw, any kind of meta breakdown of that tournament. But I don't know. Actually, let me check now if if there is a ProQuest and Cincinnati, which would be interesting. I imagine, right? Let's see. Go to the events, main event structure, ProQuest. Yes, there will be a ProQuest. So we're gonna get. Let's see. What is that? CC? Yeah, Classic Constructed. So that'll be on day 2, with a 512 player cap. So yeah, we're gonna see the results of that, and that should be another good indicator going into Road to Nats. And I believe there's also something going on at SCG Con in Virginia. So we're gonna have plenty of information regarding CC going into that weekend, but I think Dallas Fort Worth, in terms of the draft portion of Road to to Nationals, we have a good indicator of a pretty balanced format that is going to be pretty wide open. We're going to have some of the best players in the country battling out at Nationals, and it should be awesome to watch. I'm gonna hopefully I'll just perform well at the calling, and I won't even be able to pay attention to Nationals. But yeah, it's my first big flesh and blood event. I'm not going to be unrealistic, and hopefully I'll catch some games of the Nationals tournament, and it should be a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for the week. Nice little episode here. We're keep on rolling. The show is growing. Very grateful. I'm really happy to have all of you guys as my listeners. Please feel free to reach out on Twitter. I am at freshbudspod. You can also email me at freshbudspod@gmail.com. You can ask me anything, whether it's flesh and blood related or anything else. We have a really cool episode coming next week. I think we're gonna jump into the jank tank a little bit, and just explore some budget stuff with a special guest. That should be fun. And then the week after that, I'll be headed to the Calling Orlando, which I will record an episode for right before I shoot out there. I don't think I'm going to record while I'm out there, but that could always change. But definitely, if you're in Orlando, please look out for me. Say hi. I'd love to chat with anybody, meet people. Maybe jam some games. I'll be hanging all weekend, and it'll be a lot of fun. And and check out the coverage this weekend of Cincinnati. Garbage Andy, he's going to be rocking that broadcast booth, and that's super exciting. And obviously everybody else, Tan and Grace and Rob Seigel, who had performed pretty well at Dallas Fort Worth, I believe he day-two'd. They're all going to be hopping on the mic and casting that bad boy, and we're hopefully see some more awesome limited gameplay coming up this weekend. So yeah, follow me on Twitter. The show's available on Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, on YouTube, and So as I have been doing lately, been closing with food. I want to talk about buffalo wings. First of all, I am a blue cheese fiend. Get out of here with the ranch. I don't want to hear it. Blue cheese all the way. And flats. I am a flats all the way guy. I'm not gonna not eat a drumstick, but I love a flat. It's so much It's so much a better vessel for the chicken, right? I think you can kind of you can really, and I've seen these guys on TikTok and stuff where they basically push the chicken off the bone. You can just suck it off in one clean bite. Man, it's making me pretty hungry for buffalo wings myself, which I'm on my own tonight, so I might just have to order some buffalo wings and then maybe jam some games on Discord of Flesh and Blood. So, yeah, so you guys should be, first of all, eating your buffalo wings with blue cheese. Feel free to argue with me on Twitter about that. I would love to argue with some of these ranch, you know, ranch boys out there. And if you're a drumstick person, I don't even know what to tell you. I mean, we'll battle it out too. But you know, until next time, I've been Tommy Fresh, and you guys have all been my buds. And this has been Fresh and Buds, and I will see you next week.